My name is Desmond Cole, and I believe that if we were being really honest about kind of the subconscious psyche in our country, we would have a sign at Pearson Airport to welcome newcomers. And in big, bold letters, that sign would say, "You belong." And then there would be a big asterisk next to it. What do I mean? It's as if in our country, on the surface we say you belong, but that there are rules. You know, you belong, but certain restrictions and exceptions may apply. You belong, but the offer is subject to change without notice at any time. And in the case of an issue that I've been advocating for a very long time, which is non-citizens being able to vote because they are ratepayers in the society, it's like, you belong, but taxes are extra. We have these conditional ways of talking, because it's not really Canadian to just explicitly come out and say, you don't belong. We don't do that, but we do say sometimes you belong, but you belong but, right? You belong, but you should really dress like so. You know, you belong, but you should really learn English and speak it in public. You know, you belong, but don't bring the politics of your homeland out into our streets. And I think this is how we talk. And those of us who take Canada's welcoming, multicultural persona and reputation as a given might wonder, like, who says this? Who talks like that? That's not who we are as Canadians. But I can tell you as somebody who has worked for most of my life talking to people, especially strangers, as a community outreach worker, as an activist, and as a journalist, that I hear these kinds of you belong but messages all the time. And they concern me. So I want to tell you a story about when I was first working on a campaign around newcomers being allowed to vote in our municipal elections here in Toronto once they become permanent residents. They should have a local vote. I would meet people all the time who would say, this is a terrible idea, and how do we know that they're really loyal to this country? And I think that they should wait till they become citizens, as if there was something really magical and transformative about the day that you say the oath. And sometimes, you know, after trying different strategies to talk to people, I would just say simply, so let me get this straight. You live here. Your neighbor lives next to you. You pay the exact same amount in property taxes. You send your children to the exact same school. You ride the exact same bus to work every day. Why do you get to choose who your child's school trustee representative should be, but not your neighbor? And people would think about that for a minute, and many times they would say, that's an interesting point. Well, you know what, Desmond? Okay, but just for school board trustee, all right? None of this other stuff. We can't extend the you belong too far, too fast. It might be imprudent. We might give people the wrong idea that it's too easy. They have to work for it, right? You belong, but. And I think this is very Canadian. I'm 33 years old, and in the time that I've been alive, there have been a lot of changes in this country. You used to not be allowed to be called to the bar in Canada unless you were a citizen. That changed during my lifetime. You used to not be allowed to serve, forget voting. You were not allowed to serve on an agency, board, or committee of the City of Toronto until 2007 unless you were a citizen. Free volunteer support from anybody. But no, if you're not a citizen, you can't play. And then, of course, there's the issue of voting, which is something that I've been advocating for, along with many others, including Ratna, for years. So, you know, it makes me wonder where this is coming from. And, you know, I think Sylvia Miracle really touched on something important in talking to me earlier before we came here, and I want to mention it. I wanted to mention that Indigenous people, the first people of this land, were also denied the right to vote by the British somehow. That somehow happened, that a group of people who were here first were told, you also don't necessarily belong. You belong with an asterisk. And as Sylvia pointed out to me as we were chatting before this presentation, that before 1960, you actually had to give up your treaty status in order to be allowed to become a voter as an Indigenous person. And I think that that tells us a lot about who makes the rules that we play around with when we talk about who belongs and who does not. In the election that we just experienced federally here, we heard a lot of negative messaging around immigrants. We heard about zero tolerance for barbaric cultural practices. We heard about the stripping of citizenship. We heard about bogus refugee claimants. And you might think, okay, well, we're in Toronto, Desmond, and our city mostly didn't support that politically, so what are you talking about? And I have two words for you, and those two words are Rob Ford. Rob Ford, who, when he was mayor, said that he wanted to deport people who are convicted gang members. Rob Ford, who, when he was running for office in 2010, said, we can't even take care of the people that we have here, so we cannot invite more to come. And even in presumably progressive Toronto, the same conversations that I had with people on the doorstep about voting, you hear this reluctance, this caution, this you belong, but. And I feel like we need to learn how to better deal with this when we encounter it. The election disturbed me greatly because I believe that people in this country are free to vote for whomever they want to, for whatever reasons that they want to. I guess I just feel like racism and xenophobia and intolerance are deal breakers politically, and that I wish more people in our country felt like that. I want to close by saying that in my ideal situation in this country, you belong wouldn't come as a conditional. It wouldn't be an asterisk. It would be a standalone statement. It would be something that doesn't have to come with all of the baggage that I think it comes with today. And there's a lot of work for us to do in order to get there, but I always believe that we can. Thank you.